Hi, my name is Sami El-Soudani. I have a PhD in material science working for aerospace industry. And I came to this country, to the United States, 50 years ago, which is quite an age for me. But ever since I came here and then I got married now to a Christian wife, the question always came up as to what is the right religion as such, and should my wife, being Christian, take up Islam, which is my religion, or should she stay in her religion? In the spirit of Islam is freedom of religion. There shall be no compulsion in religion whatsoever. So my wife was never forced to adopt Islam as her religion. And we had children born to us, and the question came up also, should our children adopt Islam or the religion of their father, or should they be religion of their mother, and so on. So these questions came up early in our marriage, and the first book I wrote then was called In the Beginning, Hijacking of the Religion of God. And the illustration on the cover is really an artwork by Nabawiya El-Soudani, my daughter. And as she was being brought up, she was very anxious all the time as to, if I chose the wrong religion, and now will I go to hellfire? Will I be punished forever, eternally, and so on? This is a question that hung over our head throughout our marriage over the years. So the artwork here shows the artist herself, Nabawiya, above on the surface of a black hole here. This black area represents a black hole. If you make the wrong choice, will you fall in the black hole and be punished eternally? And so this was the motivation for me to start getting into this question of which religion should really one have, and is there a wrong religion and a good religion? In the illustration here, Nabawiya put the three religions, what we call Abrahamic religions: Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And then she added in there the Buddhism too, because there's a lot of Buddhists in the world following Buddhism. So this motivated me towards the end of the last century to think about writing a book about religion, especially because in that time frame, if you recall, before the year 2000, in 1980, 1990, people were prophesying that the end of the world is going to come at the year 2000, and the whole world will be eliminated, and so on. and of course, the year 2000 came and gone, and nothing happened except for, of course, September 11, which was a disaster. But anyway, those are the years or the environment in which I wrote my first book, which came in 3 volumes, 1,040 pages in 3 volumes. And when I studied religion, I came to the conclusion that all 3 religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have been hijacked right from the beginning till this day. And so my book came out in 3 volumes. The volume 1 is volume 1, Judaism, In the Beginning, Hijacking of the Religion of God, Judaism. Volume 2, again the same title, In the Beginning, Hijacking the Religion of God, Christianity. And then volume 3, Islam. And it's amazing and surprising that all 3 of them have been hijacked. Now the question is, how did this come about and why? Is it and the word in the beginning says that right from the beginning. The Judaism started 1200 BC, in other words, about 3,000 years ago. And if you recall, if you read the Judaism and the scriptures, you will find out that right in the lifetime of Moses, the Jews already were deviating from his teachings and hijacking his religion. And as I said, the start of it all came about 1200 BC. That is like nearly 3,000 years ago. And Moses discovered that when he came down from the mountain, that the Jews deviated from his teachings. So in volume 1, I documented 2 hijackings of Judaism. The first hijacking of Judaism began 1200 BC and continued until 586 BC, and it was the first hijacking, the ancient hijacking of Judaism. This was followed much later in contemporary time by another hijacking, second hijacking of Judaism by Jews, Zionists, wearing a mask of invented Zionism and invented religious Zionism, they call it. Zionism itself is a secular movement, but they put a mask of religious Zionism on their head to control the state of Israel. This is the first hijacking. This is the first and second hijacking of Judaism. I also wrote the second book, the second volume here dealt with hijackings of Christianity. There again, ironically, it's 2 hijackings. The first hijacking of Christianity occurred due to Saint Paul, who morphed Jesus into the Son of God, and thus converting or turning the historical Jesus into Paul's mythical Christ. This is really was a major shift in the teachings of early Christianity, and this was immediately followed by, like say, about 3 or 4 decades later, by the adoption of St. Paul's teachings about Jesus into the 4 Christian Gospels. The Mark, Matthew, John, and Luke adopted the ideas of St. Paul into their Christian Bible, and in fact, the Paul's letters became an integral part of the Christian Bible. Now, this Paul's inventions also led to a second hijacking of Christianity, which occurred later at the Nicaea Conference. That the Nicaea Conference was a conference called by East Roman Emperor Constantine, there was all this big mess now about who is God, what is God like, and was Jesus Son of God really or not, and so on. There was a debate about Jesus being of divine origin or human origin. And so the emperor ordered 300 bishops to come to the conference, and he said, define your God for me, So because there was a fight between churches in North Africa and Italy and every place, and he was frightened, he was threatened by a division of his emperor. So he was only concerned about his empire and the unity of the empire, not anything else. But the 300 bishops that gathered at the Nicaea Conference in 325 AD sat there debating was Jesus of a divine origin or a human origin, and the prevalence of the second thought, being divine origin, appealed to some of to the majority of the gathered bishops, 300 bishops, and so they decided they formulated the Trinity doctrine and voted on it, coming up with a novel concept of a triune God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So the whole thing is the works of the humans who came together to resolve big issues other than worldly issues, other than religious issues. Now, in my third volume, Islam, I also covered 2 attempts at hijacking Islam. Early Islam was hijacked upon introduction of hereditary monarchy and the creation of Islamic empires very shortly after the death of Prophet Muhammad, like say 50 years or 40 years later. All this movement started then, and the empires that I'm talking about are the Umayyads, followed by the Abbasid Empire, followed by the Ottoman Empire, which lasted. The Ottoman Empire was ended by end of World War One, by the way, 1922. So all this period of over 1,000 years was already covered by these Islamic empires, and again they introduced a way of the world that is contrary to the spirit of the Quran, the holy book of Islam. And when I became aware of that, I derived from the Quran, from the Quranic statements and from divine verses, the 7 operating principles of Islam. And those are not consistent with what these empires over the course of years have been practicing and introducing. Like, for example, one of them is the rights of women versus men, and so on. And this is where all that was generated by these Islamic empires, representing a state of the world or a way of the world that is not consistent with the Quran. Now, the second hijacking of Islam, which I call the second hijacking, is in modern times, Islam is being hijacked by individuals and groups that are really claiming the ownership of Islam. Once you start claiming the ownership of Islam, you already hijacked it. And this is what the problem is right now, and the turmoil that's going on, but with terrorism and all this stuff going on, is not real, and it has nothing to do with the message of the Quran. The first principle of the Quran, it says, there shall be no compulsion in religion.